I can definitely say this is one of the best movies of the year. I mean, it's top 3 for me at this point.
Right, okay.
And Affleck is incredible. I mean, because this is a very tricky piece of material, because there's a kind of a ridiculous, too ridiculous to be true element of it, but it is true, that they faked this cheesy science fiction movie so they could go into Iran and rescue 6 American hostages. And this story, this assignment, was only declassified during the Clinton administration. So it's been out there maybe like 20 years now. But it's an amazing story. And I think that the standout in terms of performance is actually Alan Arkin. Arkin is the comic kind of gold in the movie. He has the best lines. Mm-hmm. But the movie's so masterful at blending kind of the comedic with the really intense thriller aspect of it, and it gets very intense. I mean, it keeps building and building and building in its finale.
Okay, cool.
It's just so expertly done, the cinematography and the score and the period, like a great replication of the late 70s.
I mean, to me, when I look at the photos from ARGO and the trailer from ARGO, I'm particularly amazed by the costume design, because they really got the costumes just right. You know, I'm amazed by just the story in itself, but the costumes look incredibly realistic. You know, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because they're not kitschy. You know, they're not like. They're not, you can do that and it can almost come across as a parody if you take it too far. But these are functional clothes. These are what people would really wear in these kinds of environments. But the period detail in terms of what's on the television and the set dressings and all of that kind of stuff is pretty spectacular and really sets you off in that particular time frame. Mm-hmm. If there's a problem with the movie, I think it's Ben Affleck's performance, and this is interesting because this is the same criticism that plagues Daniel Day-Lewis, because people that have a problem with his thin, higher-pitched voice in Lincoln, they have a problem because it doesn't fit dramatically what they think Lincoln should be. It doesn't contain the kind of gravitas that they think that character should have, but it is historically authentic. Mm-hmm. Now, Ben Affleck's playing a real-life CIA operative who he met, who's still alive, and spent time with him, and said that this is a very tight-lipped, he doesn't show his emotions, non-demonstrative. So he's playing it as the actual guy. But at times I felt like it lacked a certain sense of emotional urgency that I think would have deepened my investment in that character. Certain moments of that film. It's like a tricky line. Like how far you take the reality.
It brings up an interesting question. How much should you cleave to the actual person, and how much should you actually invest the performance with something that you think the audience expects?
Yeah.
And
something that might actually improve the emotional content of the film.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're waiting. Right. Even there's a moment after all the turmoil of the main plot and the main suspense of the movie. There's a moment that he has that I think should have been more emotionally played. As it is, it's played just as stoically as every other scene he's in the movie. I mean, there's like this. You can tell there's this at times this inner thing boiling inside of him, like this agitation at how things are going and this responsibility that he feels. You do feel like he's a noble guy,
right?
But it doesn't play as emotionally at times. But believe me, I mean, his performance is better than serviceable. I mean, he's a strong presence in the movie. And as a director, it's just top-notch work.
Right. Okay.
And so it's just a little complaint. But I do think that we're looking at Best Director, Best Picture, Best supporting actor, possibly. Best costume design. Best score. Best cinematography. Best editing. I think that it's up for grabs in all of those categories.
Who's the cinematographer?
And more than anything, and best adapted screenplay. I think it's adapted.
Okay.
I think it's based on a book or an article at least. I think it's adapted. Yeah.